Hello, I'm Richard Gisbert, and you're at The Listening Post. This week, Egypt goes to the polls, the story and the dangers behind covering the story. Where can a show get 400 million people to tune in and then get canceled? We'll look at the changing media rules in China. Britain's BBC, a taboo broadcaster in Pakistan. And the vicarious thrills of the online voyager in our web video of the week. Last week, we took you back to Tahrir Square, where the world has been watching Egyptians rise up for the second time in just 10 months. This week, we're keeping the focus on Egypt, and the media have a new story to tell. The parliamentary elections, the country's first in the post-Mubarak era. Egypt's changing media landscape includes a state-owned broadcasting behemoth that is struggling to remain relevant. A bunch of new private channels, many of which have political agendas of their own, and online activists who help drive revolution #1 and keep pushing. And then there's the Media Watch Group that advised news organizations not to send women reporters to Egypt for safety reasons. And the women reporters who've said, thanks for the advice, but this is our call, not yours. Once again, our starting point this week is Egypt and the coverage of a country that is in a state of political transition.
The Egyptian television has become just riveting. You're not sure what to watch.
If you look at the coverage, it's really been about Tahrir versus the ballot box. That's what I find to be the kind of dominating narrative.
I don't think that there is a single channel that we have that's broadcasting the whole truth.
The media situation is very chaotic post-revolution, but that's not necessarily a bad thing.
Working for Egyptian state-owned media can lead to some hazardous assignments these days. This news crew tried to cover the protests in Tahrir Square. Here are the liars the crowd chants. Get them out. State-owned media used to dominate the airwaves in Egypt. Now privately owned channels are growing in number and popularity, and they are making the most of their new freedoms. This channel, Al Tahrir, featured an interview with a candidate from the Muslim Brotherhood, confronting him with some old footage in which the candidate said that democracy is haram, that democracy and Islam do not mix.
ما رأيكم دام فضلكم مهندس شحات ترى أن هذه الآلية التي أوصلتك بهذا الشكل لهذه النسبة العالية هي ليست حرام بل هي كفر.
It is just one example of a private news channel, a new voice on the Egyptian airwaves, unafraid to take on the religious or political establishments. Not that those channels don't come with their own biases.
It's a little bit of a Wild West situation. One of the richest men in Egypt is Naguib Sawiris. He not only owns one of the most popular satellite television channels, he's also behind one of the most powerful new post-revolutionary parties. So one thing I noticed when I was watching shows on Sawiris' channel, on TV, his satellite channel, is not that the coverage was super biased or anything, but that there was a lot of commercials for his party.
There are other privately run TV stations which are still owned by tycoons who were close to the Mubarak's regime at some point, but they were very quick to and very smart to shift sides with the revolutionary tide basically ebbing towards Tahrir.
Keeping the mainstream media honest, including the newspapers, are the swelling ranks of the country's citizen journalists. And more often, the news produced by bloggers ends up on someone's air or on a front page.
There is an appropriation, if I may say, of the tools and content of social media by the mainstream press. I'm surprised myself at the rate at which these newspapers have actually been catching up. If you look at their front pages, if you go to their sites, you'll see of that. There is actually a synthesis that's going on between the mainstream press and the social media. Although the message, of course, in the mainstream press is generally toned down, sometimes not as engaging as the social media aspect of it. It's more informative, but it's not necessarily more engaging.
Citizen journalists have been engaging the political parties on big issues like the breaking of election laws and smaller, more symbolic issues, like when Amr Moussa, a big-name presidential candidate, tried to jump a voting queue and got called out by a local candidate named Amr Raga.
There is this famous picture that has been circulating in a viral of Amr Ragai slamming Amr Moussa and yelling in his face, teaching him a lesson. And then Amr Moussa is like standing at the end of the queue waiting for his turn. The picture was caught by a mobile phone and it went viral.
Two female journalists.
One of the uglier subplots to this story has been the sexual assault of women journalists in Cairo. Carolyn Sins of France 3 Television says she was beaten, groped, and sexually molested by a mob in Tahrir Square.
On subit des violences, c'est une façon d'intimider la presse.
Mona El Tahawi, an Egyptian American, tweeted that the same thing happened to her at the hands of the police. Those attacks led the media freedom group, Reporters Without Borders, to issue a statement urging news organizations not to send female reporters to cover this story.
And some of us got extremely angry about that. 3 male journalists have been killed in Libya, which is a tragedy. And nobody said that men shouldn't go and report Libya anymore. The assaults on women in Egypt have been absolutely horrific. But we haven't fought for 20, 30 years as female journalists to get to go on the bigger stories, for a press freedom organization to tell us that we can't go anymore. Female journalists rose up and asked them to politely shut up.
Within 2 days, Reporters Without Borders revised its position, saying simply that news media should take great care with the safety of reporters they send to Egypt.
I think it's the wrong message to say don't send female journalists. I think in the case of Egypt, the problem is, of course, the absence of laws that protect journalists. It should be the proper protection of the journalists by their own institutions and by the state. That's, I think, should be the message.
10 months into its transition, Egypt remains a developing story with multiple media angles. State-owned outlets feeling the heat on the streets and from the competition. Factional politics played out daily on television. And bloggers and tweeters determined to safeguard their revolution through the power of what they feel got them this far, social media.
And that can only be a good thing in a sort of fledgling democratic situation out there. You want the bright lights shining into every possible nook and cranny, every corner. And that's one nice thing about Egypt right now. It might be noisy, it might be chaotic, but it's hard to keep anything hidden.
Our Global Village Voices now on the continuing media story in Egypt.
I saw the recent statement from Reporters Without Borders warning media organizations not to send female reporters into Egypt. I was tremendously disappointed to see this report, as I had spent the entire past week in Tahrir every evening talking to people about their perspectives. By discouraging women to actually come in to report on these events, the media has the problem of reinforcing the male perspective and male narrative. Women are much more likely to talk to me about their experiences. I think that having female reporters on the ground is a critical part of ensuring sort of balanced coverage and making sure that all voices are heard.
Right now, the social media is playing literally the social part, helping the people in Tahrir with donations, giving them food, blankets. Right now, it's a little bit cold in Egypt, helping them to ask for doctors, physicians. This is the first part. The second part, they're still trying to ignite the second revolution, the revolution of the revolution. There's still many of the Egyptians who are using Twitter and Facebook trying to sway and persuade their fellow Egyptians who are content with the status quo.
We're always on the lookout for new voices and new faces for the broadcast. If you'd like to share your thoughts on the news media as one of our Global Village Voices, you can connect with us on Facebook and Twitter, where we'll let you know what stories we're working on. Or you can just get in touch with us via email. We're at listeningpost@aljazeera.com. You can also subscribe to our free video podcast on iTunes. Just search for The Listening Post, Al Jazeera English, and you'll find us there. Time now for Listening Post News Bites. Cable television operators in Pakistan are threatening to drop any foreign news channel airing what they call anti-Pakistan content, and the first channel they're looking at is the BBC. The cable operators disapproved of a documentary aired in October called Secret Pakistan, which explored accusations that are not entirely new, that the government in Islamabad has been soft on the Taliban and other militant groups.
The hidden story of how for a decade Pakistan deceived America and the West.
The All Pakistan Cable Operators Association said of the BBC, "We want to send them a strong message to stop this. If they don't, then it is our right to stop them." And they said they wanted the BBC to apologize for the film. Instead, this is what they got from a BBC spokesman. "We condemn any action that threatens our editorial independence and prevents audiences from accessing our impartial international news service." Back in June, we reported on the killing of an Indian journalist, a crime reporter shot in broad daylight in Mumbai. Police have made another arrest in the case, and it's a journalist. Jigna Vora works for the Asian Age, an Indian daily newspaper. Police are questioning her over the murder of Jyotirmoy Day, who worked for a tabloid called Midday. Ms. Vora is accused of passing vital information about the victim onto his killers, like his home address and vehicle registration number. According to reports in the media there, the Indian police are saying that she initially denied having conversations with a mob boss about Day,
but also this has a very high underworld linkage,
but has since admitted to speaking to the criminal, although she denies any wrongdoing. Mr. Day reported extensively on the Mumbai underworld, which, the authorities say, is what got him killed. A Walkley Award is to Australia what a Pulitzer Prize is to America. It recognizes journalistic excellence, and one of this year's winners is WikiLeaks. The whistleblowing website, led by Julian Assange, took home the award for outstanding contribution to journalism. Walkley trustees said WikiLeaks applied new technology to penetrate the inner workings of government to reveal an avalanche of inconvenient truths in a global publishing coup. This news will not thrill the Gillard government in Canberra, which has echoed noises coming out of Washington that what WikiLeaks was doing is illegal. Accepting the award in a pre-recorded video message from the UK, where he remains under house arrest, Julian Assange said,
"As long as we can speak out, as long as we can publish, and as long as the internet remains free, we will continue to fight back armed with the truth."
He also said that WikiLeaks' next battle will be to ensure governments and corporations don't turn the internet into a vast surveillance tool. Some strange goings-on at the Washington Press Club over some pointed questions aimed at a member of the Saudi royal family. Sam Husseini is a DC-based journalist. He's an occasional thorn in the side of politicians there. Husseini attended a news conference at the Press Club given by Prince Turki Al Saud and asked him about the Saudi government's legitimacy, considering its record on what he called human rights abuses and the oppression of its people.
You come before us, representative of one of the most autocratic, misogynistic regimes on the face of the earth.
It was a testy exchange that resulted in Husseini being suspended from the press club for, quote, boisterous and unseemly conduct. Some other journalists quickly came to Husseini's defense, though. Dean Baker of the Beat the Press blog was among them. "It is understandable that Sam's questions make people in power uncomfortable," he said. The goal for reporters is not supposed to be becoming friends with the powerful. It's supposed to be getting information to the public. Sam Husseini does what journalists are supposed to do. Within a couple of days, the press club backed down and lifted its ban against Husseini, who said, "I welcome this decision and aim to ask ever tougher and sharper questions. I hope others will as well." These days, it seems that hardly a week goes by without the authorities in Beijing issuing some new rule that deals with the media. The latest is a ban on advertising during TV dramas, the idea being to keep viewers from changing channels during the program. Before that, the government announced the end of a wildly successful TV talent show because it didn't like the message that the show was putting out. Among the other changes in what Beijing calls its cultural development guidelines, internet companies agreeing to keep a closer eye on online content, and journalists told they cannot report news stories found online without first getting official confirmation. The Listening Post's Meenakshi Ravi now on China's new media campaign, the party tightening its control over television and the web.
For 6 years, primetime TV in China has featured the media phenomenon, the Supergirl. This Chinese version of the Western Pop Idol and X Factor franchises has been the top-rated TV entertainment show in the country. It's a mega music competition combining reality TV, a talent contest, and phone-in voting. And it's drawn as many as 400 million viewers. If the audience were a country, it would be the world's third most populous. Among the viewers, however, was the government in Beijing, and this September, it voted the show out of existence. In a directive issued by the Chinese Communist Party in September, broadcaster Hunan TV was told the 2011 season of Supergirl would be its last.
In the eyes of the Chinese government, mass media can influence public opinion. So, to the Chinese government, controlling what is going on television and radio is a paramount concern.
This type of clampdown actually happens really on almost an annual basis. And what usually happens is you have a loosening of government restrictions on media and entertainment, and the newspapers push the envelope a little bit. And the entertainment programs become a little bit more scandalous, and then the government decides that this has gone far enough, and they clamp down.
The Chinese government has issued a directive saying that they should focus their efforts on producing contents that have educational value or that can help people become more patriotic, love the country, love the government, and love the party. What the government is concerned is that a lot of the entertainment programs on television these days have nothing to do with educating people to love the country.
There's another dating show that's being popular on Jiangsu satellite TV. The English title is If You Are the One. The government was concerned about the kind of message being conveyed by that show and whether this is not living up to the standard of the so-called spiritual civilization that the government wanted to promote.
But it isn't the spiritual civilization of just China's massive TV audiences that the government is concerned about. The Communist Party has also had its eye on the country's growing numbers of internet users. More than 500 million Chinese are online, and most of them are on China's microblogging website, Sina Weibo, which dwarfs Twitter in the number of its users. The site claims that the number of people on Sina Weibo has jumped 150% over the last year. And it's having an impact on the flow of information in China.
There was a high-speed rail crash on July 23rd.
More than 190 injured after 4 coaches of a bullet train fell off a bridge.
Weibo was the source of a lot of criticism of the government and criticism of China's high-speed rail system. If there was one incident which focused the government's fears about Weibo, it was probably this, because the citizens using Weibo were criticizing the government in unprecedented quantities.
Another event was this PX chemical plant project in the northeastern city of Dalian. The citizens got the information that the chemical the plant is producing is really toxic. So they also organized demonstration in public space through microblogging through the internet. And eventually the municipal government had to bow to the pressure of this, and the factory decided to end their production.
Restrictions on the internet aren't new in China. Most Chinese web users have never seen that famous image from the 1989 Tiananmen Square protests, a demonstrator facing off with an army tank. Tibet is another topic that's off-limits online. And with each new government media campaign, the Great Firewall of China has grown. Facebook is banned, and this past month, 39 Chinese internet firms promised the government they would conscientiously safeguard the broadcasting of positive messages online.
If you don't toe the line in China and you're involved in media communications, you will get into big trouble or you will get shut down. This is the way the media is controlled in China, and the extremely fast uptake of microblogging, of Weibo, has posed a new challenge to the authorities' control of speech on the internet.
There are several very prominent bloggers in China who is very influential. Han has a large base of followers in China, and he is not shy in criticizing the government. I also know there's a blogger called voiceless. She's a Tibetan woman, and she writes quite a lot on the issue of Tibet.
We wrote to the Chinese Ministry of Culture asking for comment. We didn't hear back, but their website says the recent regulations on internet content are an attempt to strengthen guidance and administration of social internet services and instant communication tools and regulate the orderly dissemination of information. But tech-savvy Chinese web surfers have made it harder for the government to completely control the flow of information online.
I know a group of hardcore internet users who do really try to circumvent the firewall. They have the determination and the means to do it. Last year, I did manage to interview quite a lot of internet users from Hong Kong, and they told me their stories about how to circumvent the firewall. As long as you have the basic know-how, how to install an application on your PC, and then log on to the site, and you will be able to bypass the firewall and see the sites that are blocked.
The government is not able to fully control what kind of information the public can have access to. People might just find different ways, or maybe even using a different kind of language, because on the Chinese internet there are also all kinds of spoofs, parodies, and euphemism, all kinds of ways to circumvent the filtering and the censoring.
For web surfers in China, working around the Great Firewall is an option. But the billion-plus Chinese who are not online are still seeing only what the government in Beijing wants them to see. That is the reality of what is on show in the Chinese media.
More Global Village voices now on the changing rules for the media in China.
Despite the fact that the Chinese people live in an environment with heavy political controls, they have managed to make the internet into a very lively and interesting public sphere. Over the past few years, I've witnessed how internet jokes about political censorship and official corruptions have gone viral in China, and I think that the Communist Party of China certainly sees this as a great threat.
In terms of the entertainment ban, the so-called entertainment ban, that's coming from SARFT, which is the State Administration of Radio, Film and Television, or it's China's sort of film censorship board. And I think we can really understand that as an effort by them to strengthen CCTV, which is the state-owned Chinese television stations, by essentially weakening the entertainment offerings that can be made by these popular satellite networks. So they're sort of trying to bring more strength to the propaganda apparatus.
Usually we try to end the program with a piece of video that has some news relevance, but this is not one of those videos. There's a production company based in South London, and it's put together an oddly moving stop-motion video. The little white desk toy in it, it seems to us, is a metaphor for people who spend a lot of time online, should maybe get out a little bit more, and may never get to visit in the real, non-virtual world some of the places that they can see on Google Earth and on Street View. This is called Address is Approximate. It was made by Theory Films, and it's our web video of the week. We'll see you next time at The Listening Post.